Hey everybody, this is Perch, and we're heading into summer event season, which is kind of cute and charming, come to think of it, because really, in comics, every season is event season. Always, all the time. Winter, spring, summer, fall, all events. But the summer tends to be the bigger events of the events, and sure enough, we're getting Dark Crisis from DC. We're getting Judgment Day from Marvel. Both are promising to change the world of comics forever as we know it. Nothing will ever be the same again. Ever. In the words of Jericho, ever again. Something like that. Anyway, it's definitely going to be different, for sure. This time for reals. We're not joking. It's definitely long impact, big changes. It will definitely happen. No doubt about it. Kind of don't even think anything other than that. It's definitely going to be different. So, will it be? Well, this viewer writes in, and I always say this reader, but there's no reading going on here. It's and maybe you watch this thing with subtitles. I don't know. God help you if you do. But this reader writes in with a question. It says, here we go. It's like, hey, Perch, from listening to your videos, you hate events. You're always complaining about them, and you're saying that they're not necessary. However, events always sell. So in this case, it feels like you are really out of touch with the market and with the industry. If the events are what sells, why do you hate them so much? Genuinely curious, not a troll. Okay, well, thank you for that. So it's not that I hate events. I view events in a similar fashion to how I view variant covers and several other things that go on. I think that events are in many cases a trap. They're a short-term solution that covers up and hides a bigger problem. In this case, I think the bigger problem is the content, the fact that we're not, keeping readers long-term, the fact that we're hooked on, on variants and on other gimmicks in order to get comics over, and that the events are a way to perpetuate, basically not fix the problems, perpetuate a lot of the bad behavior. Because a lot of these things, they're not healthy for comics. We know they're not healthy. We know that overall they tend to deteriorate the monthly book in and out. And it trains readers, and this is probably the worst part of it. It trains the buyers that if you want to see important things happen in a comic book, you're going to need to read the events. That's it. And I like to do wrestling analogies, so here's a wrestling analogy. It's not unlike what happened to the wrestling house show business, when that used to be a place where people would show up and they'd watch a wrestling event, and and you would believe that something legitimate was going to happen there. And then at various times, the WWE or WCW, they needed to sell pay-per-views, or they needed to get their television audiences up. So what they did was they would, basically start to ignore the house shows. Nothing ever happened there. No title ever changed hands. There was never any danger of anything. So if you're going to a house show, you're going there basically to see, a wrestler in person, or maybe you lived in a small town and you didn't get a big event, and that's all you got. But you knew nothing was going to happen. No storyline development was going to occur. So every once in a blue moon, the WWE will do a title change at a house show, and then they'll hype the shit out of it. They'll be like, hey, this is why you got to go to our house shows, because anything can happen. See, we had a title change. See, it's not just a waste of your money and time. That we have things actually happen there. You need to go, and that may sucker in a few people, but it never lasts very long because everybody knows it's a gimmick. Unless it's a Madison Square Garden house show, and people know just no big names, or nothing is going to majorly happen. Recently, Roman Reigns, who's become one of the WWE stars suddenly after years and years of trying, recently he came out and gave a little speech like, I don't know when I'm going to be back here again, basically here being a small town. And it was because he signed a new contract that meant he got to work fewer dates, and it meant he wasn't going to show up at house shows anymore. It's just too much of a strain on the body, and he's not going to do it. So this is, in effect, what comics are like when you train everybody that the events are where things happen. And where this gets really destructive is that if it's, say, the Avengers title, or it's a Spider-Man title, you would hope that, read along on that title would matter. But if you've trained everybody that any kind of big storyline developments are really going to only occur at the house show, or sorry, at the event, then, you see it that I got mixed up my wrestling analogy. If you train people that way, you're basically giving them. You're saying that the solo book doesn't matter, and this has been pretty true of comics for quite some time, where even a book like the Avengers struggles to get sales at various times, not because it shouldn't. It absolutely should be able to get sales, but if you tell everybody that Civil War or Secret Invasion or Secret Empire or all these kinds of events are where important things are going to happen, people are eventually going to stop buying the regular book. And this is where I say I think it is a bad thing. I think it teaches the wrong lessons to comics, and I think it's overall destructive to your core business. It basically puts you in a position that, hey, if you want to make money on your comics, you're going to have to make it through events. So add more events. If the numbers start sagging a little bit, throw in another event. Before you know it, all you've got are events, and you've trained your audience that's really the only place important things happen. You make matters worse when you only put in your big creators, your top talents on those events as well, which is again like wrestling. If Brock Lesnar is only going to show up at pay-per-views, and you like Brock Lesnar, why would you ever pay money to go to a house show? You wouldn't. You'd save up and just go to the pay-per-views, and there are fewer of those. You got 12 of those a year, and if people just save their money and don't go to any house shows, only go to the pay-per-views, well, that takes a huge amount of dollars out of the WWE's pocket. So same thing with comics. If you train people that the regular events are of less importance, then you're basically you're going to cut off your monthly business. That's no good. So that's why I dislike them. There have been good events. I have nothing necessarily against events. I think is a way to tell a different kind of story. It can work. I think Civil War worked as an event because it would have been hard to tell that within a regular comic. I think Secret Invasion absolutely could have been just told within the Avengers. I don't think it needed to be told in an event, but that's what they did. Fear itself could have been told within Thor and been a big crossover. And the funny part is, if they did reserve some of these events for their solo titles, like War of the Realms, why wasn't that just in Thor? If it was just in Thor, it would have actually made a crap ton of money for Thor. It would have boosted up the readership significantly. The good analogy would be today, if you're thinking about that Jim Lee 12-issue Hush storyline, but rather than put it in Batman, they would have put it in just a standalone event called, Hush. It would have made, tons of money for that, but it wouldn't have had the necessary boost effect for Batman. And what we did see is after, Hush ended, it basically reset and restarted the numbers and helped. It helped the title a lot. And that's why it's good to do these in the solo books. And so that's kind of my point. I don't inherently hate events. I think there have been good events and bad events. Again, we're getting Dark Crisis. That event just seems completely unnecessary and just I think is going to be a bit of a train wreck. And definitely retailers are already commenting that the numbers are very soft from what they expected or what DC has done in the past. They've just you burned a lot of goodwill. Over on Marvel, Judgment Day is going to sell like crazy because it's the Avengers, the X-Men. People are going to fight. Characters are going to be judged. Ooh, what happens when they get judged? Who knows? Celestials are going to do something. And so there will be this kind of vague promise of lasting status quo changes with the comic, and so that's going to drive people to buy the event. But again, if the Eternals are a big part of this event, and they are, what does this do for the Eternals book? Like, if you want a surefire way to actually boost sales in the Eternals and make that book a huge success, don't run the standalone Judgment Day event in its own book. Run it in Eternals. Have these guest stars just write in, issue 13, issue 14. It would be very radical and a novel idea, but here's my thought. I don't know that it would change much. If you said, hey, issue 13 of Eternals is going to be super, super special because it's going to have the Avengers in there, it's going to have the X-Men in there, it's going to, Spider-Man's going to be in there. It's going to be huge, lasting status quo changes that are coming to you from the Eternals book. And you market it that way. I'll bet that book would sell just as much as Judgment Day #1. Particularly if, yes, you went ahead and dumped in a bunch of variants and you did the event starts here and all that other kind of crap. If you did that, you'd probably make about the same amount of money. Honestly, you would. It seems like, intuitive, like, well, you got to get a #1 out there. No, I don't think so. If you market it that way, if you made a big deal, do a special cover, double sized first issue, whatever you have to do, chances are you'd get a very strong selling book. You would create a halo effect around Eternals that would last beyond the event, and you'd have more to sell. Overall, from a business perspective, it would be smart. Now, this doesn't work for everything, but they should try it at least a few times for a few things. It might work out more than they think, and I think it'd be helpful to their business. Anyway, so that's the answer there. Again, I don't have events. I just think that they become a band-aid when you should really go in and get surgery or get yourself taken care of. It's like putting a band-aid on top of cancer. It's like it's not, well, that's a terrible analogy actually, because I would do absolutely nothing. But it's just, you should probably go to the doctor and get really looked at. That's a comic. You probably should go to the doctor. It'll be a new slogan for this channel. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.